Portugal is a country that has been affected by the globalization of language. In fact, our research has found that English has influenced much of the country, especially in the restaurant business. While Portuguese is the official language, Mirandés has been granted by the government the status of an officially recognized language as well. However, because of the globalization of other languages, it is currently dying out. In fact, fewer than 5,000 people still speak it as a first language. The main foreign languages spoken in Portugal are English, French, and Spanish, with English being spoken by 32% of people, which makes it the most prominent foreign language, despite Spain's close proximity to Portugal. The following is an interview with a man named Nicolau, who is originally from Bangladesh, but now lives in Portugal and has been living there for the past 9 months. He speaks Bengali, English, Portuguese, Spanish, Dutch, and German in his industry. However, he says English is the most useful. What do you speak?
I speak English and Portuguese, sometimes Spanish and Dutch.
So it's like 5 different languages?
Yeah, 5, 6, no more.
Wow, that's crazy.
But English is most.
English is most used? Okay. How are different languages used in your profession? Like how many different languages do you have to speak here?
I have to speak Spanish, Portuguese, English, French, and Dutch.
Wow.
And so India, Bangladesh sometimes.
Wow.
Different.
So that's all on a regular basis?
Regular, yeah.
Wow.
Like Portugal, Spain has also been affected by the globalization of language. However, it has also affected the world. In fact, because of the high number of Spanish speakers in Spain, which amounts to 500 million, Spanish has become the world's second most spoken language. It is second only to English. The following interview is with a woman working at Melcart's language school in Cadiz. In her opinion, the idea of a global language is difficult, but English is the best candidate.
Un idioma único es un poco difícil. Creo que el inglés es un idioma que se habla en muchos sitios y es fácil para aprender.
¿Crees que español hace un efecto en otros países?
Por mis conocimientos, como esto es una escuela de español, sabemos que el español es un idioma que está de moda en muchos países, y otros países de Europa están muy interesados en este idioma, en el español, porque lo ven como una salida para su trabajo.
Ghana is an interesting country in terms of the globalization of language. Like other countries featured in this video, English has become an integral component in the business sector as well as Ghana as a whole. However, local languages have been preserved in many communities and are still used in many professions. The following interview is with an environmental consultant who agrees that English is becoming an international language, but also emphasizes the importance of other languages such as French, Spanish, Portuguese, and Chinese dialects. Further, he believes that people should do their best to learn as many languages as possible. How are different languages used in your profession, and which languages?
I think that English is definitely the main language used in Ghana, and certainly in our professional life that's the main language used. Sometimes in our profession, because we do environmental impact assessments, and with that we're interacting with local communities in the projects where we work, then the local languages have to be used, and so we've got a special public consultation team that use the local language, which is normally Twi there in Ghana, but I would say definitely for the most part we use English.
Do you agree that English is becoming an international language?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I would say probably the most, certainly in Africa, English is the main language used.
Are there any other languages that you foresee becoming used globally in the future?
I would say so. French is obviously important, especially in Africa, Francophone Africa. Spanish and Portuguese are also up there. And then I think what's going to become more important is Chinese, you know.
Right.
The different Chinese dialects, especially in Africa, because so many Chinese people are coming.
Do you have any other thoughts on the idea of the bridges and barriers of language in the world today?
Yeah, you know, it's obviously the most important thing, because if you don't speak the same language, you can't communicate properly. You have to use translators and that sort of thing. So yeah, I think it's important that people learn different languages at school. If I had to be a child again, I would certainly want to learn French. So yeah, it's good for young people to take up the opportunity to try and learn as many languages as they can, especially when they're young and they can learn them easier. And yeah, they'll certainly be well equipped for their work and their communication in the future.
Brazil is a country that has also been affected by the globalization of language. However, local languages have been most preserved and predominant due to the many rural areas in the country. For instance, many areas in the Amazon that are separated from the rest of the country and the world still speak native languages. In Brazil, the main language spoken is Portuguese. According to the following interview, English has penetrated the country, but its importance and influence is largely limited to tourism.
My name is João. I come from a descendant of indigenous Indians for a long time. We still have some of them that are still living deep into the forest and still live their natural life. I am far different because I came out from my tribe. I first learned to read and write in Portuguese. My first dialect is called Wapixana, and I do still speak it. And the third language will become in English because I came into tourism. That's the reason that I haven't learned to speak English.
Would you say English, it is important for other people in the Amazon or Brazil to learn?
In conditions or situation, it would, yes. Because I had one example of a boat driver that had been work with me. It was two of them. One of them gave up half of the way. The other one still continued, but he had a dream for himself because his dream was to become a tour guide, and in future he have been completed it. And since then, today he works as a tour guide. He learned, he dedicated himself, because to learn another language, you need to not become shy. You need to become very brave, because if you're shy, you cannot have a good conversation with no one.
Uruguay, a predominantly Spanish-speaking country, has also been affected by the globalization of language. Unlike many other countries in this video, Uruguay shares borders with the country that speaks a different language, namely Brazil, where Portuguese is spoken. However, the language barrier does not pose a problem because there are similarities between Spanish and Portuguese. Our research has found that many people have found the necessity to learn English. However, this is highly dependent on their profession. For instance, a police officer only needs to know basic phrases, while a hotel concierge would need to be totally fluent in the language. The following interview is with a tourism director, a field that is more affected by the English language. I know that Brazil is next door to Uruguay. Is there a sort of a language barrier between the two countries?
It is very interesting because we love Brazil, right? We love our neighbors, and we try to speak their language as much as possible. Right? Now, what we have in the borders with Brazil is what we call Portuñol. People speak Portuñol. It's a mixture of Portuguese and Espanol.
Oh, okay.
In the border. It's a real mixture of both languages, Portuñol.
I know that it's vital to know English in your job, but is it vital in other jobs around Uruguay to also know English?
Now it is. Has the English as a requirement to get a job has increased a lot today.
Yes.
It is a plus if you speak English, whatever. From being a waiter, because you have to work with foreign customers, to services, of course, in all cases. bank, everything. Of course, private, international companies, it's a must to speak English today.
Is it taught in school?
Yeah, it is. It's part of our school curriculum. When I went to high school a long time ago, you had the chance. Okay, you had to study English, but in the last years of high school, you had the chance to choose French, Italian, other languages. Now you don't have that anymore. Just English.
Throughout the past 2 centuries, South Africa has become increasingly globalized, and the introduction of new languages has been a significant characteristic of the process. Initially comprising a range of traditional languages, dialects native to various tribal minorities, the arrival of Dutch and British imperialism brought a European influence to South Africa, and amid the cultures came language. In recent times, South Africa has experienced further globalization from an even broader set of origins, which has generated a distinct blend of languages detectable in the society today. In Cape Town, we spoke with a man and a woman, both locally raised, who each had a rather competent grasp on the language environment in South Africa. How are different languages used in your profession? Which languages? Perhaps maybe.
Well, I teach internationally also. I'm also the national coach, karate coach. So, and English is spoken all over the world, so I don't have a problem. Let's say I get to Spain and do a karate seminar. Most people can either speak or understand English, otherwise they'll be an interpreter.
Are there any local languages that were more commonly spoken that are now dying out?
The Khoisan. That's a language that is slowly being, not phased out, but it's being lost.
With the influx of everybody else.
Argentina has seemed to be the least affected country in terms of the globalization of language. It is the second largest country in South America and shares borders with Spanish-speaking countries except Brazil, where Portuguese is spoken. Unlike many of the other Spanish-speaking countries in the world, Argentina is not particularly affected by English. However, it has been affected by Italian, the country's secondary language. The following interview is of an Argentinian waiter at a local restaurant in Buenos Aires.
My name is Adrian. I'm 25 years old.
Is it vital in some jobs to know English?
If you are in a restaurant, you have to know English. At least you have to the verb to communicate with the other person.
Just like the menu and
the menu.
Stuff. Yeah.
English is very important, and we started people coming here. That's for me, that's the first language. English is the first language, and then Spanish.